Student Occupational Therapy Association. Long story short, we applied for and were awarded a grant that allowed us to invite you here today.
Okay.
So welcome. Let's see, I had this all. I want to give a special thank you to Carmen Ferreira, who's our professional development chairperson. Carmen, will you raise your hand? As well as Rachel Stewart, who is the workability coordinator and counselor with Sac City. Thank you. You guys have been amazing in collaborating and coordinating this event, and that's the reason you all are here today. Through their collaboration, they were able to put us in touch with Mr. Joseph Barry here, who I'm excited to introduce you to. Mr. Barry is a disability advocate. He's worked for over a decade to improve employment opportunities for people with disabilities. I understand he's a doctorate student at California State University, Sacramento. That's hard work. He's also participated as an advocate at state and local levels and currently holds officer positions for several advocacy groups and organizations. And so I just want to tell you that our hope for all of you today is that you leave here with an expanded awareness, appreciation, and reverence for people with disabilities, visible or invisible. We hope that you experience inspiration to persevere and persist towards your dreams and goals, that you reach high, and know that we all face challenges in our own lives. And we encourage you to turn those obstacles into opportunities. We encourage you to believe in yourself and know that believe in yourself and all that you are, and know and remember that there is something inside of you that is greater than any obstacle. So without further ado, I'd like to please join me in welcoming Mr. Joseph Barry.
All right, hi everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, so it's a little bit. I'm happy for the turnout. Actually, really, this is a good thing. I plan to probably go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves, but that might take up the whole time here. So let's just do a little bit, though. Just a little bit, just so I know who I'm talking to. Let's just maybe do the tables, maybe. Yeah, I want to know who's here and what's going on, and we'll just go in a circle. If you don't mind, please, just if you're a student, anything, name, and what.
Hi, I'm Nora.
Hi, Nora.
I'm Adriana.
Adriana.
Sharon.
Yeah, so hold on. Let's just do names, and whether you're a student or even in the program. Is that all right? Is that cool?
What's your major?
Yeah, something perfect. All right, cool. If you're not too shy, please.
I probably want to do business, finance.
Okay.
Business, customer service.
There you go. All right.
Mine's is also business.
Okay.
My name is Berko. I'm also doing business.
Okay. Cool. This table over here.
My name is Shane Copeland. I am currently in the program and I'm trying to do business.
That's right.
My name is Alexia.
It's cool if you're undecided too. Go ahead.
College technology.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sarita, I'm a staff for education coach for the College to Career program.
I'm Kara Parker. I'm current student, and my major is business office assistant.
My name is Brianna. I'm currently in the college career program.
Cool. Over here, this table. All right. Here, you can pass too. It's okay. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tony.
Hi, Tony.
I'm a student of art currently. I've earned my degrees here at Sac City, so that makes me an alumni.
That's right.
And I was born with a natural birth defect.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
My name is Danielle, and I'm majoring for music, so I can become a teacher in
Alright.
Houston.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Joe.
That's my attitude.
I'm a business owner and interested in this topic of empowering.
Great. All right, good to see you. Love you. Anybody over here? Name,
I'm Paprika. Currently I'm undecided, but I'm flip-flopping between theater, journalism. For a while I did philosophy, law, anything like that. Just everywhere flip-flopping.
all good choices. I like it.
Hey, I'm Dynamite.
Dynamite.
Here and I major in art.
That's right. Nice to meet you, Dynamite. You wanna go?
Oh, I'm Tammy. Majoring in physics.
Oh yeah, congratulations. Let's see. You guys wanna go here?
I'm here in support of Joseph, and this is a return of after a decade back to City College and see what you guys are doing. So good things I've seen today.
And I'm Mike. I'm currently a student in the new Community Health Work Certificate program, and I've known Joseph a long time as an associate in advocacy.
Yeah, who's my fellow advocates? Please.
Shar Rashid, and I'm a multi-directional advocate.
Hey, my name is Ryan. I work here on campus in our Disability Services Department. I do the alternate media.
Nice to meet you, Ryan. Oh, I know you. All right. So anyway, the title, I'm gonna tell you guys about myself too, so don't think it's a one-way street here, right? But the title of my presentation, I chose literally yesterday, and I put hands up, don't shoot, and I know that's kind of a theme that's, been going around for a few years, but I'm gonna use this in the context of understanding. Basically, the main focus of my talk is going to be talking about disability as a social model, right? And how disability means socially, and the implications for that. And the reason why I called it Hands Up, Don't Shoot, of course, for the very, relative things that are going on in our society, especially in Sacramento today. And so a lot of those things can be tied, or not necessarily tied, but related to disability to help kind of further those understandings of, of how disability means something as well. Okay, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we kind of got over the introductions, right? And this is just kind of a basic outline about what we're going to talk about today. And so, yeah. I'm going to talk about myself real quick. I don't want this to be like a whole presentation about myself. That's not why I came here. But I will use myself and my own examples to show the concept of disability as a social construct and those kinds of things that I already talked about. Of course, news, right, and current events, right. We're going to talk about that a lot. I think the stuff that happened in East Sac with 84 people being arrested for peaceful protests and stuff has a lot to do with. Even with disability, we have one of the most historical protests on record. When they took over the building in San Francisco, the 504 protest, that was the longest government building sitting in a long time. And so there's a lot of tradition and history rooted in protest, not just around disability or around ethnic type of different differences. It's something that has been around for a while. And then of course we'll talk about policy and what that means for everybody. I don't know if I'm going to keep this mic because it's kind of a short string, right? All right, so, sorry about that. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. All right, so disability is a social construct, right? So when we talk about disability as a social construct, has anyone been familiar with the social model of disability in here? Not too much? You? Can you please, right or wrong, yeah, best you can, tell me what you think,
So, so there's different ways that we can view disability as from a medical model, from deficit thinking, like there's something wrong to be fixed, and from a social model, it just means that having a disability is part of the spectrum of being human,
right.
And everybody is on that spectrum, and that everyone has gifts, and I think that's my best way to
All right,
say it.
no, very good, very good, very good. No, thank you. So when you talk about, she's exactly right. When you talk about, there's three historical models around disability, right? And you talk about, really, you're talking about a medical model, you're talking about a social model, but even the longest running model around disability was called a moral model. And so for a long time, disability was viewed, from traditional culture as being something that was very stigmatized. That was a bad word. Even in America, I think, for the longest, if you were born with a disability, you were shunned. You either got sent to an institution if you were lucky. They might put you in the backyard until you froze to death. That was something that your family would be frowned upon, for having come through your lineage. And there's even like music still to this day. I think Jay Stalin said something about, I don't know, I guess he was, in his music, he said that one of his friends was a criminal, basically. I won't get into it, but he was a bad guy. And he said, and because of that, his daughter was born, was deaf or blind, something like that. And they were saying that was a result of his actions. And so that's a long-standing, probably the most historical model of ways that we consider disability. A medical model probably came about 100 years ago, roughly, maybe. And that's a model and it's valuable, don't get me wrong, it's very valuable. And it basically talks about the medical aspect of it, of how, you're going to basically fix somebody, right? If somebody can't walk, we want to help them to walk. And those are great things and all that, but that's only part of the story, right? And the social model, the main focus of today's conversation has to do with understanding disability in a way that is created through agreed meanings, right? And so, I mean, we could just without getting way into it, but just think about something like, I don't know, let's just say we use the wheelchair, right? If everyone was in wheelchairs, we'd have ramps, and stairs would be a weird thing, right? And that would be for those people that are different from us that have to use their legs to go up, different levels, if you will, right? And so it applies not just across from wheelchairs. You could talk about something like that from, any type of disability you can think of, right? It's just that disability holds meaning in being different. And so, we'll talk more about those things, but I use these images here, right? So, I think a big thing around a good explanation of disability as a social model is when you think about something like an elevator, right? An elevator is something that might, help a person who can't walk up steps, if you will, right? But it helps everyone. So whoever came up with an elevator, right, it was a win-win, right? You're eliminating that social construct of disability of not being able to go up steps, but you're also helping everyone who doesn't want to climb 85 floors of steps at the same time. And so when we create our society, and we're going to talk later about like legislation and policy, whether it's at the school district level, state level, but when we're creating policy, we want to create things that are more akin to the elevator thing, right? Where it's good for everybody, right? We want kids with, that were quote unquote without disabilities and so-called with disabilities to all be able, and we want to eliminate that social construct that's creating the disability, whether that's 85 flights of steps, or maybe a policy that says we're gonna suspend a kid the first time he cusses in class. I don't know, right? But those kinds of things, right? And then, I use the universal symbol of accessibility just because that's kind of like what everyone thinks of when they think about disability as it is, in society. And then I put something else a little bit more controversial, which is the gun. And then so when you think about something like a gun, now you're talking about a whole gamut of disability, right? Hold on. So if you think about someone who maybe has a physical disability, they say, well, you might need that to protect yourself so you don't get took advantage of. You think about somebody with a mental disability, historically, or not historically, well, just historically, but even today, a narrative in the news is that people who commit crimes with guns have some sort of disability. And we'll talk about in a minute about disability being used as a qualifying narrative to basically qualify prejudice, right? And to do things to certain segments of the population that's not ethical, but we always say, well, that's because there's something wrong with them, right? Especially mental disability around issues of firearms. And we'll talk more about that. But I just put that up there because I thought that was a significant thing. All right, so about me, right? So think about even for myself, right? My business for the longest time, right, and still operates today. It's called Crooked Face Productions, and it's funny to me because when I'm at Sac State and I'm telling my friends, what's your business title? I say Crooked Face Productions. They're like, oh, that's me. Like, I named it that, you know what? Right? So it's one of those things where, you know, how we perceive our differences and how we, I don't know, should say, take those in and translate those into meaning, right, are very powerful things, right? And they tell stories, whether it's to our own family members or even just to the people we interact with every day, or even when we'll talk about a little bit in the media, the news, and just the overall macro narratives, even if we're going to talk about macro on a citywide level for now, but, you know, larger narratives that actually operate globally. So this is one right here, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. And at first when I saw it, I kind of cringed a little bit, but because of my disability studies background. However, I felt like not to change it because I felt like it would be a good talking point, right? And so within the thing that was going around on social media, it said Joseph Barry is a doctoral student at Sac State. A disability advocate will share his empowering story how he's overcome barriers related to disability, poverty, homelessness, da-da-da-da-da. And the overcome thing is good. Don't get me wrong, it's really kind of not the best example. But when we talk about things like overcoming disability, it's not a healthy way to say things, right? Because when you talk about overcoming disability, you can equate that. If that's how I came, that's like saying, I don't know, I overcame my Hispanicness, right? Or I overcame whatever, racial demographics. I overcame, those are part of you. You don't overcome those. You go with those, right? You be proud of those or not, whatever you feel, and we'll talk about you in that later. But nonetheless, that's something that as a disability studies major, we try to stay away from those types of narratives. We try to say, hold on. When it comes to disability, we don't overcome disability. It's part of us. That's part of our, our story, right? Like I said, it equates to saying, like, I overcame my blackness. Those aren't things that we say. It's not healthy. It's not good, right? You don't say those kinds of things. It's weird, right? It's the same with disability. So we have to start thinking in that way, in which we don't look at disability in a thing that's, I don't know what you say, at least from a social, concept, we don't look at it as a thing that's to be overcome. All right, so let's see. All right, so okay, this is where I talk about me, and I appreciate everybody for telling me a little bit about you, right? And so just real quick, I don't want this to be too long, but let me just do it quick. I was born at home, right? My ethnicity is mostly Caucasian, but I also have my father's on the Miwok tribe. I have lineage that comes from Guatemala, Africa, and those different areas of the world. And without getting terribly into it, I identify as being mixed. I was born with a disability. They said I was going to die when I was 3. I turned 40 in November, and I don't feel like I'm going to die anytime soon. That's good, right? And this talks about different things I experienced growing up. When I was young, my mom was put in a tough position to have to raise somebody with a disability, a very unique disability, in which you don't know if I'm gonna die any day, or you don't know if I'm gonna, who knows, right? But she's tasked with the job of making me independent. And I bought my own house when I was 26, but I think all of that in large part, my mom put me up. I was on my own when I was 15. She said, hey, figure this out. And so, long story short, I think that those things all help us to grow, right? I had a lot of surgery when I was younger. I went through a lot of pain. I had 13 major surgeries. I had 10 blood transfusions before 1986. They said if you had a blood transfusion before 1986, you got a 1 in 10 chance of catching HIV/AIDS. Lucky for me, that didn't happen, right? So these are all like strokes of fate, right? So long story short, I graduated here from City College in 2001, and I'm very proud. Everyone I tell my first degree is in music, audio engineering. And so I did music for about 5-10 years. I had children, like son. And when I had my children, I think a lot of things changed for me. I went from thinking about me first to thinking about having children, right? About how the world's finna evolve. And so I went back to school, and then I went to Sac State at first. I did my bachelor's in intercultural communications. I did my master's at California Baptist University in disability studies. And now I'm doing my doctorate in education at Sac State. And the main thing I want to do with that is to advance programming in disability studies within the state of California, something that we're lagging in very much. There's other states that are continuously progressing, and we're stagnant at nothing. And so that's something that has to change. So that's what my goals are with my degree now. Like I said, music's a large part of my life. The cannabis thing, that kind of speaks to and we won't talk a lot about it today, but there's a lot going on about this opioid epidemic and those sorts of things, right? But what you have to remember is people with disabilities have to have their medicine, if one way or another, and I think that right now we're getting the short end of the stick around the way the narrative is going around medicine, especially when it comes to pain medication, people that are suffering from cancer and things that are definitely validated as far as being extremely painful conditions, right? And yeah, without making this presentation totally about that, it's been a large part of my life. This part of my growing up, these are some friends that I've lost over the years, and without getting into it a whole lot, Nicholas Broadway was someone I was very close to in the policy realms. He worked in the Capitol in the governor's office, grew up with him. We've been friends since grade school. He got killed due to violence and stuff like that at the casino on 16th around 2017, 16 roughly. Rob and Sergio, I'm sure you guys probably, or some of you probably heard of them. They were on their way to my house that day, and they got killed at noon o'clock on Fruit Ridge in Stockton. Two brothers. They were young men. I can't condone their lifestyle, and without because I don't want to go too long on this, but without getting way into it, you could make arguments around the constructs that was going on there. It's mainly the reason I put those slides in was to talk about how social constructs work and how those things play into people's actions and outcomes. Whether that be tragic or great, right? And then here, this is my friend Jerome. Everyone knows him as Dejan. Again, another grade school friend that was experiencing some type of mental breakdown, if you will, and was killed by the police. I want to say about 5 years ago, right? Go ahead. This goes more into it. So cancer and sickle cell, right? So my friend here, he just passed last month. It's little Phil. And he passed with cancer, right? And that kind of ties back into the whole medication thing. And I think that he suffered a little bit unnecessarily because of the access to pain medication, in which he was probably could have been better, right? But these are how social narratives and constructs, right? Again, go into how we actually approach people, right? Who are experiencing disability or the likes, right? And I put sickle cell, and I really wanted to put a picture of my friend Ed Brown. He passed for sickle cell. Again, it's the same kind of thing. And the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about this. But we're talking about validated medical type of conditions, right? That carry strong social connotations. Especially if we're not careful, we don't know exactly what disability means historically. Go ahead, son. That's me and my daughter, by the way. Yeah, I love her too. Yeah. This is what I got to. This is where I was getting at with those things, with the cancer, with the sickle cell, right? Is a theory that I have called alias modi fascio. It's a little bit about the phenomenology of disability and what exactly it means beyond a social, medical, moral type of model, right? So consider, right? And I want to try to pull this up. I don't know if this will work, but consider something like this before I even pull that up. The California Genetic Disease Screening Program, something that they have now. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's something we should all be aware of, right? It sounds kind of almost 1940s Hitlerish to me in my eyes. I mean, how does that sound? California Genetic Disease Screening Program? You think about something like sickle cell. What's that mean for a parent who may be having a son or a daughter with sickle cell? Does that mean you're not encouraged to reproduce? These are like larger social kind of things, and I don't mean to scare anybody off, but these are things that are actually operating in our society that we should be aware of, and we shouldn't be afraid to talk about, because they could be good or bad, but if we're not all aware and we're not all having open conversations about these kinds of things, it can become very dangerous, right? And so to get back to, let me see, hold on, let's see here, I don't know if it'll pull up, but we're going to try it. Sorry, one second. Technical difficulties, right? There we go. All right, so okay, cool. All right, hold on. Let me get down here. Page 11, I got you. This is kind of like, it goes back to that whole thing about the genetic disease screening program. All right, so this is a theory around alias modi fascio, right? And what it says is, right, it says that impairment, right, on the right hand is something that is actually like a physical kind of, I don't know, when you cut your finger off, you want to put a Band-Aid on it, right? I mean, it's something that we want to fix. There's nothing bad about saying that, right? I mean, there's a truth to being, with disability being something that, I don't want to paint a picture that disability is all kumbaya and it's all great and, you know, whatever, you know, types of things, it's okay, right? There's suffering that goes on within disability. However, I don't want people to equate disability and suffering automatically, but there are certain aspects of disability, especially certain ones. You talk about cancer, it kills you, right? We don't want that. We want to fix that, right? And so impairment talks to that a little bit. Talks about it's the issue of medicals, doctors, patients, right? It's an undesirable condition, right? Even within the self, right? It's not something that you can live with. It's something you want to fix yourself, your own, you know, within your own self, right? May cause immediate pain, anguish, death, right? But it's something that you have at least a strong ability or potential to influence, right? Something you can fix. It kind of goes into those things of how much does it affect you as a person because you can or you can't fix it. It's important, right? Could be a source of anguish or it could be a source of pride, but usually it's more about anguish. When you're talking about something you want to fix and those things, right, you have to go through something. You have to do chemo, right? It's not good, right? Temporary healing, I won't go all the way in, but so that's the whole part of impairment that has to do with the actuality of disability. What's up, Will? All right, so and then disability, right? It's more the social model. That's what we've been talking about, right? It's subjective, right? It's not necessarily within the object being the person, right? It's something that we all negotiate meaning through, right? What does that mean related to something like impairment? You know, what I call impairment. We need more words around disability. I mean, I know it's already confusing enough when you talk about disability and, I don't know, handicap and all those things, right? We need less words. We actually need more words when we talk about the actuality level, at least agreed upon meanings, right? And then in the middle you have what's individual qualities, traits, idiosyncrasies. These are just things that you're born with, right? It could be the color of your hair, right? It's just a variance in sight. It don't have to be something you're born with. Maybe you got shot and you're paralyzed. It's a natural condition. It's something that just it's there. It's something that happens, right? Even a lot of impairment. It's an idiosyncrasy of life, right? It's something. It's just part of it, right? And so the middle part of it talks a little bit about those things, right? And the reason I put it in the middle is because it could go either way. It could be something that's very powerful in your identity. It could be something that's not very powerful. It could be something that's determined heavily by the amount of impairment you feel about it. It could be determined heavily by the amount of societal pressures or societal definitions, if you will, right? And the last thing before we move off of this slide, right, it says that interaction occurs between disability, right, the social part of it, and impairment, right, but it's not desirable. All of these things interact with each other within the concept itself, right? But the last thing you want is for the social thing and the impairment to be related. That's when it gets dangerous. That's when we go back to the thing with the genetic disease screening program, right? Of course, if we had our druthers, we wouldn't want to have sickle cell, right? I mean, sheesh, that's just the normality of it, right? However, when it gets dangerous is when we start attaching social values to things like sickle cell, right, or impairment type of thing. And now when we have our conversations with our doctor, right, whether it's around pain medication, whether it's around to have children who, you know, may have a trait, right, then that's a problem. That's not desirable. That's not a desirable thing. And so, you know, I put that up there just to kind of further the conversation about what disability studies is and what it's about. And that's kind of my spin on that part of it. Go ahead. Back to another technical difficulty, y'all, real quick.
Joseph, can you explain more about exactly what the genetic disease screening program is and like what that looks like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think I've got it pulled up on here too. So the California Genetic Disease Screening Program is ran by the California Department of Health. Oh, sorry. Genetic. Sorry, I'm tripping. There we go. It's kind of weird. They use some real scary terminology in here too a little bit. Not, I don't want to talk terribly to turn this into like a political campaign, but if you look at the last sentence, say the mission of the genetic disease screening program is to serve people in California by reducing the emotional financial burden of disability and death caused by genetic and congenital disorders. There's an amount of validity to that, barely, but I think that those are very kind of strong words for the state to be, posting on their websites or whatever. This is the California Department of Public Health. This is a state-funded program, right? And so, yeah, I don't know exactly what they do. I know it probably has a lot to do from my research. It has to do with stuff like if you're gonna have a child, and potentially, say if I was going to go have a child tomorrow, and my child's mother went in, they would say, well, I don't know if that's a good idea, and then I don't know what kind of services they would offer to say, the chances are your child having this or that, type of thing. Don't do it. That's what I think it's all about, right? Nonetheless, those are very strong words, right? Talking about burdens of disability and death. I don't know. Those are, I think a lot of times that black and brown communities are marginalized by applying things like this to us. We're overrepresented in these kinds of contexts, if you will.
Just on a side note, there's a lot of disabilities that are not genetically inherited.
Right.
We're just born and it's just a...
Right. No. Yeah. I mean, even so I'll speak to my
nature.
No, you're right. So even so, for me, for the longest time, I'll have a child on the way, whatever, right? And the potential kid's mother would go down to the office and they say, well, if you have a child, it's a 50-50 chance to come out like his dad as far as having the same condition. And I wouldn't want, to put any child through what I went through as a kid growing up, those sorts of things. And so I would say, it's probably about 3 or 4 different opportunities that I could have started a family, if you will, right? Not saying it's good or bad, right? But they said, no, probably shouldn't do that. Well, then when I went to have children, right, and my kid's mother said, well, I'm going to have these children regardless. I don't care what they say, type of thing. Well, then all of a sudden they said, well, and both my kids came out normal. Now the science changed, and they said, well, it's called a post-embryonic mutation that you have. And so, we were wrong at first that it's not a 50-50 chance your kids would have it. The only way your kids would get it is if they were exposed to whatever mutated your genes, right? And so it's kind of one of those things where how much do we trust the government, if you will, to make those decisions for us? We should all do our own research to know what we're going to experience as a family. And I think I'm getting too far off topic, but the point is these things are out there, right? And the main thing I want to say is just be aware of them. I don't want to tell people how to think about them. Think for yourself about them. Nonetheless, they're there, and these are things that we all should be able to understand. So all it takes is one, charismatic politician to come through and say, heck yeah, we're expanding this, and it's great, and everybody's perfect, and we're eradicating disability. I hear people say that word, right? And so it's one of those things where it could be a very dangerous narrative if we're not careful, right? So the main point is be aware of those things, right? They're there. Here we go. All right, so I'll go back to the thing. Any other questions or anything anybody want to add to it? Okay.
Bro, remember they did that to me though. They said he might have spinal bifida, and that we can talk about termination and all that before they
encourage, those types of things, right?
Yeah, we was tripping all weekend. It turned out he didn't, but sure.
Right, but I think that's what the genetic disease screening program is about at this point.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to where we're at, right? Let's talk about these things and what they mean and how they tie into like certain aspects of it, right? Come on, almost there. That. All right, that's where we went left. All right, cool. Now, in the news, right? So I was gonna put up Devontae on there just because I think it was interesting about how his narrative was going when this first happened to his brother, right? But they said he was going through a mental crisis, right? It was all in the news, right? That was the top news, right? He's jumping on the mayor's desk. Why? Because he's crazy, and this is where I'm getting back to it. And even with Schubert's findings, what she said, well, he was going through some emotional issues, and he must have been high. I don't know, but she was basically saying it's okay to shoot him because he was off, right? Something wasn't right upstairs, right? And so that's the reason I put this up here is because what's going on, what often happens is, and it's been historical, you know, black and brown communities, even especially around education, well, you know, they can't do this, they can't do that. Why? It's validated. We use disability as a validator, call it a double prejudice, right? So imagine what that means if you really do have a disability. Not only are you saying, okay, well, right? What's the answer to that then, right? Is something wrong, right? For instance, Max. I don't know if everyone's familiar with Max Benson. He was the kid that was killed while he was at school, right? He was being restrained. He has autism, and he was being restrained at school, and he ended up dying in custody of schools, not jails. We're talking about schools here. What they say? Well, he was crazy. He was acting wild. All these kind of things that are harming, right, for our community, right, or community of persons with disabilities, right? I put the protest in there, like I said, because that's a huge. I don't know what you would say. That's a huge, you know, part of our story, right? And it's a shared story, whether it's around disability, whether it's around, you know, ethnical differences and all those sorts of things, right? But nothing changes without people at least being aware of the issues and being real close to them. And the last thing I'll say about the whole police shooting thing, that's been a common narrative around what they don't tell you, and even within Sac City Unified. They said, well, it's a black issue or even a brown issue. The ELL students, English language learner students, they're being suspended and they're being, you know, this and that. What they're not telling you is it's under the guise and under the, what you'll call that, the disposition of disability. What it is African American students with an IEP are 4 times more likely to be suspended from 10 plus days from school than other students, right? And so that means that the IEP is the validation. These kids have emotional disorders. We have to suspend them. That, right? English language learner students, again, well, they have more, whatever. It's a disability. They get. The facts are that they get diagnosed at twice the rate of for the rest of the students of having a disability, right? But they're only getting services at half the rate. And so it's one of those things where, again, disability is used as kind of this negotiation tactic for prejudice, right, and those sorts of things, right, qualifying discrimination. Policymakers, right, so this continues that same conversation, right? This is your Sac City School Board as it stands. It might change any day, we don't know yet. The state legislature, obviously, they make up these rules, and I'm not putting this slide up there to throw shade or anything. I'm just saying that there's a lot of work being done around this stuff, right? So kind of just where the presentation is meant to change a little bit, and it's meant to say that that there's avenues out there, there's advocates out there. It's kind of what got me into this whole realm of, I thought I invented social mild disability. And when I went to look it up, like, hey, I'm a genius, it was already there. I was like, oh, great, right? So it was one of those things where what we have to understand as people, right? And whether it's around disability, whether it's around race, is that we're in this together, right? But there's work being done every day, right? Good and bad, right? And just recently we got food stamps awarded. I was part of a team that got food stamps awarded for everyone on Social Security. For the longest in California, we couldn't get food stamps if you were on Social Security, right? It was called cash out. And so this summer, the cash out will end, and anybody on Social Security should be able to get food stamps. Within reason, I mean, we might have maybe 10,000 people in the whole state who, for whatever reason, earn too much to get their food stamps while they're on, maybe they get $2 on Social Security. I don't know, some weird math into that. But so my point is that there's people out there that are working on this stuff, right? And my main thing is working on understanding it better, understanding how these narratives operate, and understanding disability as a social construct. And so those things can be used more towards the public's favor, right, and removing barriers, right? When you talk about things like, 4 times the rate for African American students at Sac City College out of school suspension, we could change. That's a form of segregation. I mean, you can take it how you want to, but it's the truth. When you send a Max Benson all the way to a school from not from UC Davis, but from the city of Davis all the way to a school in El Dorado Hills to be able to cater to his needs, that's a form of segregation, right? And I know those are like crazy words from the 60s, but it's true. This is what's happening, right? And these are things that are going on under our noses, right? Under the guise of disability, if you will. My point being is the better that we understand these things and the better we understand the truths about them, the better we can make our own decisions as a society how to move forward, with them in a way that's healthy for everybody. I even put, this is where I got Stevante in there, where you talk about somebody who's, I don't know what you say, painted a picture of being off at that time, right? actually putting in change, putting in work to make a difference, right? And so, you know, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And a lot of times, the most people that are the most courageous, they're the people that are the crazy, or called the craziest, if you will, from society. They're the first one people point and say, you know what, that's what's wrong. But in actuality, they're the ones pushing the line the hardest to make the change. And so I thought that important graphic to show him standing up there and actually influencing people, you know, whether he wins his race to be the mayor, I wish him the best of luck, or not. At least he's putting it out there, right? At least this is a conversation that's being had within the circles in our city. Main thing, again, so it's about understanding barriers, social barriers, right? Constructs, right? Things that's within the narrative of society, right? And how we can remove those, right? So a doctor's job is to fix somebody's leg or brain or whatever it is, you know, remove their cancer, if you will, right? But as a social scientist and a person that disability studies type of approach, it's our job to remove social barriers, right? Outcomes that are blocking off students. Maybe a policy out of school that says we're going to suspend a kid for the first time he cussed in class. I'm not saying that's a policy, but if it is, that's something that would be a social barrier that should be identified for removal, right? And that's good for everybody, not just the African American students being you know, suspended at an unnecessary rate. It shows across all data points that if you improve outcomes for students with disabilities within your program, it actually improves everyone's outcomes. So for whatever reason, right? When you integrate students with disabilities into your school, it actually makes everyone's scores go up for whatever reason. Hey, you know, I didn't make it up. It's in the data. So our thing is about, again, identifying and barriers, you know, to discuss being removed, right? And to hit us under. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit early here. It's probably be a good time for some amount of discussion here. So, yeah, this is my contact information. I'm trying to organize around starting a research type of firm or a research type of organization to understand these things, right? So anybody interested in that kind of stuff, I know we had a lot of business students in here. I don't know, maybe you guys can help us write grants. I don't, you know. But there's a lot of, it's not just that. There's definitely advocacy organizations that need your help, you know, whether it's around Social Security, whether it's around Sac City outcomes, and all those sorts of things. So that's my contact information, and I'll please encourage you, please, to reach out to me at any amount.
I have a question. So how does the social model apply to the realm of employment?
Okay.
You say something about
go ahead. Yeah. It's very significant to the realm of employment. So one of my most proudest accomplishments, right? When I used to be one of those, I used to be a worker, if you will, right? And I miss those days actually now that I'm a starving student, right? I used to work for the EDD, and I worked downtown, you know, I think it was 800 Capitol Mall or something like that. And I was part of the director. This is one of the first things that got me into advocacy, the Disability Advisory Committee for the EDD. And while I was there, we actually set records at the EDD for not just the rate of employment of persons with disabilities, but also retainment too. It was really a special thing. We got recognized internationally. It was global awards that we won. But the reason why, to answer your question, the reason why I even bring that up is because when you talk about stuff like employment, you talk about occupational therapy, if you will, right? I mean, that's the gist of this presentation is, you know, helping occupational therapy students understand the social factors of disability. And that's not to dismiss that there's not a reality to the medical part of it, right? That's a big thing, right? If someone who has a job, I think I was talking to you the other day, I can't remember exactly what was said. If you do, please remind me. But bottom line is, if someone's doing a job, right? Oh, okay, we were saying, all right, so this is exactly a social construct of disability. Even the EDD uses it. If somebody, right, and their only job is to push the button, maybe they're the nuclear launcher. The president calls you, and all your job is to just push the button when it's time, right? And maybe, I don't know, you missing every single limb, and I don't know, whatever you think is your concept of disability, etc., right? That's you. But for whatever reason, you can push that button, no problem. Then in their eyes, in the employment world, you're not disabled. You couldn't apply for disability from the California state SDI or SSI. You can work. You can do the job in which you made your career. You can do it. But maybe you got, I don't know, some football playing looking dude, right? And all he got is a hangnail, and today he can't push that button. Well then, for whatever reason, this person that we think of as being ultra-disabled is not, in their eyes, is a social construct of disability, exactly to it. And this person that we think of as being, I don't know, the strongest person you've ever seen is disabled for whatever reason, can't push that button. And so when it comes to employment, the main thing is being able to help people do their jobs. And I was talking to my daughter about this too. She wants to be a surgeon, right? And I said, okay, well, let's think about, I said, if something go wrong with you where you can't be a surgeon, I said, well, what might that be? She said, well, maybe I can't see. I said, okay, well, say you go blind, and we was talking about this whole thing around occupational therapy. I said, okay, say you are going blind, and there's nothing doctors can do about it, right? As an occupational therapist, I'm not sure exactly what your guys' job to do, but maybe, something like this. What I told her, I said, there could be an instance where they say, well, you fired, you can't be a surgeon anymore, it's just out for you. But maybe if you're a real good surgeon, maybe you could become a trainer of surgeons, right? Maybe the answer isn't to fix the person, maybe it's to fix the actual job duties, job specification. Now you're a trainer, and now you become more valuable to your company or your hospital, wherever you're working for, because you're a great surgeon. You can teach 15 other surgeons. Just because you can't see don't mean you can't teach them what to look for, right? Or how to do that, right? And so something that simple could be a fix, but again, it's a social construct, and it's a disability studies type of approach in which you aren't, there's something very valuable into fixing the individual. If you can fix that guy's hangnail, great, do it. But if that's not an option, then the only answer is to fix the environment and fix what's around. If there is an answer, then that's where I think the social model and why disability studies is very important, even in the field of occupational therapy, especially because that's what it's all about, is keeping them working. And I think that when it comes down to work, the job is the most important thing to get done, not necessarily fixing the person or I don't know, whatever it is. That's the main goal, right?
So do you see perceptions changing in the working world about disability? Is it moving along as you would like to see it? Are more doors opening up to persons with disabilities in employment?
I think that disability advocacy is just like advocacy for any other type of demographic, if you will. And someone told me this, I can't remember where, and I wish I could remember this person's name because I'll use this line a lot. But they said that advocating for disability, or really advocating for any marginalized person, whatnot, has to do with, it's like riding a tiger. And the thing is, you can ride that tiger and you could do a good job of taming that tiger down, but the minute you fall off, it's going to eat you up. And so I think that what's going on with the way that disability is going is just like almost every other demographic type of makeup. And that is that right now it's not the best time, I don't think, for anybody, but it is in a way in which it means that people are being inspired to speak up and inspired to rally and unite. And so, no, I don't think that right now is ideal time. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's, put it like this, over the last 10 years right now is not an ideal time. However, you think in the context of the last 150 years, it's a beautiful time, absolutely. So, yeah.
Also speak to that. So my name is Rachel Stewart. I'm the Workability 3 coordinator here at Sac City College. And, Carmen, I think you raise a really valid question about what does all this mean in the context of finding a job or, being able to sell yourself to be able to get a job. And I think a lot of people growing up in the medical model feel like something's wrong with me. I have things that I can't do. And there's this focus on things you can't do instead of looking at what you can do. And so I think being able to be proud of who you are as a person with a disability, as a person with multiple identities is really important, and that really increases self-confidence. And it's also just presenting yourself as the most qualified job applicant, period. And being able to focus on your skills, be able to have strengths, also have a work experience. A lot of people graduate and get a degree, and they think that degree is going to open doors for them. And a piece of paper alone is not going to open doors for you. You also need work experience. Getting that internship while you're still in school, getting jobs that are related to your ultimate career goal and building upon your career, I think is really important. And not being ashamed of asking for reasonable accommodations. It's our right to have an accommodation. And so knowing what you need in order to be successful in that job is extremely important. And, you know, I think sometimes people get, you know, trying to figure out, like, how do you talk about your disability in a job interview or things like that. And I think for somebody with a very visible disability like myself or Joseph, those employers may have questions in their mind or stereotypes about what we may or may not be capable of. So how do you dispel those myths or misconceptions in the interview to make sure that, you know, they know right away that you can do that job. Or if you have a non-visible disability, you have the choice of whether or not you want to disclose. So I think, you know, all those things are really important to keep in mind, and just using your resources, you know, making sure that you're reaching out to different organizations that can support you in your job search is also really important. So sorry.
No, it's all good. This question here, just real quick, just to that, I think that even for a person with disabilities, hidden or visible, I think the biggest part of it is just overcoming that stigmatization in the first place to even put your neck out there. And I think for me, that was like the longest battle I had. Like, I didn't want to go to disability services. I used to resent when the teacher would send me there, just because I didn't want that attachment. I didn't want to be labeled, funny as it sounds, I don't want to be the guy that have to go and, you know, request accommodation, whatever, right? So it's one of those things where the more that we talk about it and more, you know, openness, it's almost like the LGBTQ quandary. The more that we talk about those things, the less that you're going to experience those openly discriminatory type of approaches, right?
So you said while you were working for the EDD, you broke some records. What kind of things did you do to help improve employment rates for students?
You know what? Like, to me, like, the biggest sham about it was the way that the story was told. And so put it like this: the reason why that we broke the records in the way that we did had a lot to do with the work that was being done. Absolutely, you know, it was about them expanding their occupational therapy assistant program or occupational therapy program, right? And then making sure that they made a commitment to hiring people with disabilities and those sorts of things. Absolutely, yeah. But what actually made the stuff go over the top is they changed the way in which they collected the data. It was just that simple. They said, the question went out to the whole staff, do you have a disability? And again, it's that marginalization thing. You say, no, not me, I don't have a disability. Matter of fact, we were in a meeting the other day, and I think it was one of them ladies she said, I don't have a disability, I just can't walk very far. And so it was one of those things where it said on the thing, it said, instead of saying, do you have a disability, and they were saying, no, they said, well, do you have trouble, you know, walking up this many steps? Do you have trouble, I don't know, sleeping, thinking? It was all these different, it was like maybe 10, 20 questions on there that any one of those things could qualify you for, you know, potentially being disabled. And I think they used a certain amount of control, like you had to check off one or two. I don't know. It was a way that was still a valid thing, but it was just as simple as the connotations attached to collecting the data around it. It was really the biggest thing that changed us from going, in a matter of 1 year, went from, I think I want to say 12% to like 17 or 18%. And then the following year went up to like 20%. But that big jump happened when they changed the way they collect the data. But yeah, I think that's very interesting for several reasons.
Yeah.
Please.
Hi, Anita Sanders, Disability Services Supervisor. I kind of wanted to go back to what Rachel said, and she was giving you suggestions about what to do when you're looking for a job. You can practice those skills now as a student by making sure that you ask for your accommodations, that you connect with your professors, and that you be proud of who you are in the classroom.
Right.
You are a person with a disability, but you are also a student with goals. You want to meet your academic goals. You want to meet your life goals. So you do that by being proud of who you are.
Yeah.
I was a student here, and now I'm the SPS supervisor. I asked for my accommodations, and I got them.
Right. It's one of those things, not just about being proud about who you are, but having some type of purpose too. So even when you find pride about who you are, understand the community needs you, right, in whatever capacity you can offer. And so, you know, on one hand, it's about being proud about who you are as a person yourself. Of course, that's mandatory. But it's also about being proud about who you represent, whether it's within your own town, within your own neighborhood, within your own family. And those are the things I think that for me, ultimately pushed me into not feeling like being shy or shying away from my disability and embracing it. So, or whatever that's worth.
You know, I like to piggyback off what you said earlier about, you know, not wanting that attachment, you know.
Right, no, it's true.
Of whatever my disability is.
Right.
Whatever reason I need.
Right. No, that's true.
To be needed, or to need the help I need.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's important, because it took me a long time to accept the fact that I had disabilities.
Yeah.
And it was hurting. It hurt me because I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
You know, because I guess I wanted questions.
Right.
But the only question was I needed help.
Right.
The only thing I needed to understand is I needed help.
Right.
For numerous reasons.
Right.
And I accepted the attachment. I accepted it because it made me able to ask for the help I needed.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? To understand that in order for me to do what I was trying to do and wanted to do, I needed help. I couldn't do it by myself, regardless of how I look.
Right.
You know, you can look at me and think one thing, but if you really know me, you know, because for me, every day is a struggle.
Right.
So I have to put on a mask every day to just to be a part of everything else.
Every day, right. I feel you.
You know what I mean? I have to put on a mask.
Right.
You know, I smile when I don't feel like smiling.
Yeah.
You know, some days I hurt so bad, I don't even want to leave home.
Right.
But it's things I got to do, so when I'm able to do them, I get the help I can get.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? So the attachment now, you know, it's welcomed because that's what I need to be able to reach out and get that help.
Right, right.
You know, so I get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I try to share that with other people because it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to need some help.
Right, right, right. It's a couple things to me going on too, right? I mean, I think honestly, well, first of all, as men, it's hard to get to that point, even for myself, right? But even as a minority, black and brown men too, then that makes it even worse because, again, like I said, these are things that people will use to oppress us and say, you know, that. So when you ask, say, I need that help, well, then they say, well, yeah. And so even for me, like, the same thing you said, it's one of those things where it takes an amount of courage to just say, you know what it is, right? And this is the only thing that's gonna make this happen. I think luckily for us, for whatever reason, we got that. You know what I'm saying? At some point, right? I think the most damaging part is when you're talking about kids, right? When you're talking about kids who are, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, little kids. You know, they're still forming their identity of themselves. And they might go through life and end up, whatever, whether they make a good decision, bad decision, but they're going to go through life in a way, if they don't come to terms with who they are, right? And even still, you're also talking about how we define disability too. This construct might not really even be disability. It might be something else that we're talking about. You know what I mean? Nonetheless, if these kids aren't able to access that help that they need, you know, to get through, then I think ultimately they end up with the shortest end of the stick. And I think it speaks to a failure not just to the adults in their lives, but just in the larger social, in society in general, right? And so I think that right there, I think that that's a very important avenue of the work that needs to be done, right? I think that those are some of the most marginalized communities, and I think honestly, I feel like it's almost bleak the amount of support, whether it's academic, financial, and those kind of things that go there, right? At least within that context.
Things when you were younger, elementary school, college student, what are some things that you wish that you needed that you would have had someone to support you with, to tell you, some sort of conversation that, is there anything that we can do just to change narratives and provide support to this generation?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pretend that I have the answers to that. I'm not, I can give my 2 cents to it, but
like in your experience, thinking back, what are some things that you wish you would have maybe had?
Well, I think I was very fortunate, to be honest with you. I mean, looking back in hindsight, a lot of things could have went left at any time, and for an amount of time they did, right? And so, I think the things that worked a lot for me was just support from friends, support from peers, right? I think that that's even more important than institutional type of support, just because the institutional type of support it's almost like a us versus them kind of thing. And I think the institutional support comes best if it's in a way that's, I don't know, supporting art or supporting things that facilitate those relationships that develop within the community, right? I think that even if institutional support comes in the form of just saying, I don't know, everybody with a disability is welcome here. That almost scares us. Like, I don't want to go there. That means I'm different, type of thing, right? And so I think it's a delicate dance. I don't know the answer, but I would say any way that you can facilitate culture, right, or you can facilitate that is peer support, inter-student type of relationships. I think that's probably, as far as I could tell, the way to go from an institutional type of level, right? Inclusion, yeah, those sorts of things. Go ahead.
We know each other from like, we've known each other for like 20 some odd years. And, I'm gonna ask a personal question, personal advice. You know my story. I've been shot by the police 7 times, had open heart surgery, and been denied Social Security disability for a long time. I've never, and they continue to deny me. And today, I'm in school, and I think I have a learning disability, but how do I go about like maybe telling my teachers that? You know what I mean? Because I've been denied so many times.
Right.
Like I feel that I'm not qualified to get Social Security or disability, and now I'm kind of afraid to say, because now I'm starting to believe I don't have a disability. And I know this happened to me because the society, everyone's told me, no, ain't nothing wrong with you. You can still walk. You got your leg back. We helped you go through physical therapy and get all these things back. But as I'm going through these college courses, I'm starting to realize, man, it's been like 25 years since I've been in school, but I can't learn like everyone else can learn.
So hold on. So when you feel that way, do you talk directly to your teacher, or have you told anybody that really too much?
I haven't really told nobody.
Well, if I was you, I'll talk directly. No, for real. If I was you, I'll talk to the DSPS first, and then I'll also talk to your teachers, and then I'll talk to whoever you're seeing as far as the doctor goes, and see if you can get that diagnosis. If you feel like that's something that's real.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And we talk more about this anytime.
Yeah, we have someone right here for
You got the right person in the room.
Right.
So, I didn't introduce myself.
Help out there, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't introduce myself, and I probably should have. I'm Tony Newman. I'm the DSPS coordinator, and I really want you to come to our office. We have an LD specialist that does testing. Yeah, you need to come see him. Come see us.
See, that's why I'm putting out there.
There you go. Closed mouth doesn't get fed, right?
But that's perfect you said that, Will, God, because that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that we're so afraid to talk about these things, right? That it actually is a detriment to us, and actually let the people, I don't know, you say the people in power, the man, whatever, let them win, because we nervous to, engage these kind of conversations, and that's the part that I think is most harming to everybody across whatever we're going through in society, all this stuff, right? So, we're looking, right? Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I would say is you should talk a little bit about like dogfight and support groups, and build your support structures, because they are so valuable.
Right.
And the other side also is yes, learn how to speak up and ask for help. Hardest thing in the world to do. I wasn't born with this disability, but it occurred. I've got the former coordinator back for DSI back here, and it embarked me on a journey that you're seeing me a decade later, where he can tell you that I go through the houses of the legislator talking to our legislators and basically saying that to them, help us out.
Right.
And that's what something of dealing with equality, but by doing that, we help others.
Right.
Because there's so many people that are not going to speak.
Right. So exactly.
Not going to talk.
Right.
And the disability is beyond 50% now. People that are on, should we say, some sort of service in California is now almost 2/3.
No way.
Some function thereon. As you hear right now, Joseph talking a little bit about the current project of dealing with CalFresh, of getting for a group that has been denied it for 40 years, getting the legislator to recognize, hey, we can do something about this. We're on other sides too.
Right.
And we're also making sure the last 2 years with our Mr. Key's administration is defending what we've got, because there's so many ways that we are finding ourselves now wanting to be attacked, reduced, recognizing that no, and having to say, wait a minute.
All right. No, I think the best thing you said, Jeff, has to do with exactly that is we're afraid to talk about these things or ask for help, if you will, for ourselves, but not only are you doing that for yourself, you're actually doing a favor to that kid that might be the kid that have a learning disability next year to come to the college, right? And say, if Will did that, then it's all right if I do that type of thing. And so, you know, that's important that you keep that in mind. That's for all of us, right? When it comes down to these sorts of issues. And I'm not saying, you know, try to you know, do things in a way that are self-serving for any reasons, but as far as unethically, right? But the truth of the matter is, if we feel like we need to have these conversations, you're not just having it for yourself. Like I said, it's for the next kid or the next person that come along to say it's all right, and it's important. You know what I'm saying? So, any other questions?
I have a question. When you know you need help, and you ask for the help, but you don't get the help, where do you go then?
Right. That's when you start going to your peers. Now you start figuring out ways to work together, because a lot of times people that are in charge of these type of programs, and no disrespect, I love you guys, thank you very much, you know, kind of thing. But and I'm not just talking about them, obviously not just them. I'm just saying in general, like you said, you having trouble with the Social Security Agency, right? That's when it takes time for us to come together as a community, right? A very diverse community at that, and to raise our voice and say, you know what, this ain't right. This, you know, this needs to happen. If it's simple as, you know, having somebody who's prominent write a letter for you, or something as simple as maybe telling you need to go into the office and ask to speak to the worker. I don't know what the answer will be, but it does take an amount of organization in order to make people who aren't as understanding, no matter what their title is, no matter what organization they're, you might be the director of Social Security Administration and you don't understand a lick about disability. It happens, right? And so, you know, it's our job as people with disabilities to inform them. For the same reason I said before, for ourselves, right, but also for the next person that come around and had the same issue that you got and getting the same barrier and the same, you know, same blocks that you went through. So that's what I would say, you know, and amount of organization, absolutely.
Hi, I'm 37 years old, and in 96 through 97 I got shot multiple times and they took out like 9 bullets. But it took like this year and last year for me to get a part-time job and to start going to school. And I've been doing well ever since. I'm just homeless right now, but it works out. You know, the GPS office works, you know, the colleges works. You know, it's just you got to keep on trying to do what's right.
Right. And let's keep it real. Right now, sometimes it's hard for everybody, right? So if it's hard for everybody, imagine how hard it is for somebody who experiences a disability in their life, right? And especially if it's one in which maybe you can't see or whatever, or maybe that you afraid to ask for help about or whatever, those kinds of things. Then now it's operating in a very what you call that, detrimental or very horrible way, if you will, right? Right? And so it's important that, you know, we talk about the things, of course, but that we all just stay strong about it too, right? It's about overcoming anything, and you know, I didn't mean to say like overcome is a bad word, it's just mean like, you know, in a popular narrative, but within ourselves, the average person wants to overcome whatever challenges they face, and so, you know, we have to be able to overcome our challenges too, identified or not, by ourselves or by others, regardless, right? It's a universal human trait, I think.
What I was going to say too is that we have to start demanding that as part of the social construct, perfection for anyone is not an option because none of us are, and move that from that as the model, the ideal, to the side where we look at things that everything is based in accommodating all the humans in the least restrictive environment. And as far as asking, because I was a disabled mother raising a disabled child, and my way of operating was to keep my hand out, ask for everything because the law of averages was in our favor. We were going to get some of it. You keep asking, and that it should be normal to ask, and for other people, it should be normal to help.
Right. I like what you said too just now. You said something about the way that, dang, I think I'm about to lose it, but tell me if I murder this. But you said something about the way that hey, systems are set up, right? You could set things up off top in a universal way. You kind of like alluded to it in a way, but what I pictured immediately was even within the constructs of a job, right, or even one that you'll go through or whatever, right, or the way a company is set up, if you will, right, you can set it up in a way initially that is very opening and welcome and very, I don't know what you say, doesn't, you know, the least amount of barriers just because the natural setup of the business, and then it doesn't become an accommodation, it just becomes the way that we operate. And then those things are taken for, I won't say granted being the right word, but they're just taken as being an innate quality of your business or your innate quality of your construct, if you will. And so when someone comes in who may be different, then all that, what you call that marginalization, that, you know, that type of thing that stigmatizes them, is not even an issue, like, right? And so I think from what you just said, that was a big takeaway, you know, a big takeaway to get from.
Well, it's that least restrictive environment,
right.
and
Creating
applying
it that
that
way.
across the board.
Right. Cool.
Can you say anything about universal design?
Design is something that I think that we do relatively well in California. I mean, of course, we have like historical establishments that are still having to be, you know, we're making those accommodations, if you will. But again, the universal design, if it starts off that way and that's the way things are designed, see, we have to identify ways we can design things that way, right? And so it's about looking at the nature of human qualities or idiosyncrasies, if you will, right? And being able to set up any type of system that it's not an accommodation. That's just the way we get down. I mean, again, it gets back to that elevator. An elevator is a perfect example, I would say, of universal design within reason, right? In that it's for everybody. Universal design doesn't mean for this person with disabilities. It just means anybody can access it without having to be accommodated, right? And so I think that's a very ingenious idea that needs to be expanded upon in every which way possible.
You will see that a lot in engineering associations right now, that there is a lot of focus in on actually design for accessibility over a broader spectrum of humankind, right? Rather than just only a specific ideal model.
I think IT is huge right now too. I mean, we don't think about universal. Like even my presentation, you know, ideally, right? I'd have, you know, the captioning on every slide, right, and all those kinds of things. Like, you know, I'm a disability studies major, and I don't, you know, do great at the IT part of it. But even when I was at the EDD, you know, there was a lady that was in there. She's filing claims on the computer, and she can't see at all. And I thought that's amazing. But we don't have that type of technology that's, you know, accessible, if you will. It's not readily available to everybody. But I think, especially within the colleges and stuff like that, in order to have your college be truly a universally designed college, it's not just about having the walkways to, you know, feel where you're going. It's about being able to get online, whatever computer is open. Not the special computer. There's only one in one building across the campus, right? You want to be able to pull up to this computer right here and it be accessible for you from an IT perspective. I think honestly that's probably the biggest challenge that colleges are facing right now in order to be inclusive, right? We all get the concept of ramps and elevators, great, you know, but when you talk about something like the internet and any station being accessible to somebody for whatever, you know, their disability might be, that's, I think, the most important thing in advancing anyway.
Stephen Hawking ever considered himself disabled?
I don't know. Disabled is a strong word, and I don't even like that word. Like I said, there needs to be more language developed around disability, right? I mean, that's why. Right. And it goes back to that pushing the button thing, you know. Does the hangnail make you disabled?
Did everybody hear her question? No. She was asking if Stephen King considered himself, or Stephen Hawking, sorry, considered himself a disabled person.
Right. Yeah, I don't. You know, I'm sure at some level he does. He has to. Right? I mean, but you know how he interprets. That's why it's important. Those languages are strong. You say, like I said, some people hate that. I hated that, like disabled. The only reason I'm comfortable with it now is because it's just simply around perpetuating a philosophy or an academia, if you will. If it wasn't for that, I hated that word. I don't know. That's the problem. So even when so even the model that I showed, the phenomenology of disability or whatnot, I call it alias modi fascio. It's just alias meaning what, different, right? Modi, move different or operate different, right? And then fascio is a street word for show. Like it's good. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to put. I put being blue, and I sent it off to the publisher, and they didn't like that word. Being blue, we fought too long not to be considered blue. Is so equated to sad. It's just so touchy around those kinds of things. I don't know. I think it would take some type of popular movement or cultural movement in order to come up with a word that's agreeable. And I think the least of our worries is a word for the bigger picture of it, right? We're so diverse. I don't know if that would be ever possible for all communities that are disabled to agree on which word we call each other. I don't know. Might be a great quandary for a while, but more importantly, within it, right? Within that thing, to advance what you call that understandings that are good for society. I think that's where the language needs to really be developed. Whether it's around a phenomenological model of it, okay, great, that's fine, or whatnot. But even just when you talk about simple things like IT solutions for colleges, we have to have language that speaks zeros and ones, I guess, right? So it's important that we develop language around disability almost as much as we understand it, right? Because for every new understanding, you need a new word, a concept for it.
So can I just answer that too? I mean, I think identity is a very personal thing, right? And what I kind of push back and say is people are so used to thinking disability. That sounds so negative. That sounds like such a horrible word. Personally, I love the word. I definitely identify as a person with a disability or even a disabled person because disability is a very important part of who I am. I don't view disability as a negative word. Terms like differently abled really make me very uncomfortable because to me it's like saying disability is a bad word. Let's try and make it sound better. But no, I mean disability is not a problem with me, it's a problem with how our social environment accommodates me or, accepts me or has, embraces disability. So I don't see disability as a bad word. And I think if you look at other groups like LGBTQ community, a lot of folks are using the word queer to identify, and it's kind of like a reclaiming of that word and making it something positive and an important part of people's identity. So, I mean, I just, I think in general, the disability community embraces the term disability, and differently abled is is yeah, it is a slap in the face. For me it is. Because it's trying to soften the word, looking at disability as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a part of, who we are.
Right. And I mean, to that, I think that most people that, about their life or in those circles and stuff, absolutely. I think even me becoming comfortable with the word had to do with that, sort of finding that pride and understanding that disability is held meaning within the social construct rather than within itself. And I think the only time that becomes relevant is when you are talking to people who maybe aren't comfortable with identifying either that way, or maybe they're not introduced to the whole, disability rights movement, if you will, or those kinds of concepts. And I think in those situations, I don't know, it's just one of those things where that gets a little bit more blurry. Nonetheless, I do love the word disabled too.
Well, I think Lisa also brings up an important point of, as children, what would have helped us be okay with disability?
Right.
We learn about the histories of so many other social groups, the African American Civil Rights Movement, Chicano Latino Civil Rights Movement. We don't learn about the disability rights movement. So I think if students were introduced to that more early on and saw disability as a cultural group, I don't think it would be
I agree with you.
hard to really embrace.
Right, and to that, they have some legislation. SB 48, Fair Education Act, happened a few years ago, and that's just now starting to come to fruition within the education system. It's not a lot, but it's definitely a start. And it's not just even disabled communities that are having that problem. I think the Native American communities are having that problem very much. Like my kids will go to school not realizing that, you know, that our family's on the tribe of Native Americans. And then my son came back one day, he was about 2nd grade. And he had made some kind of weird ass remark. I ain't gonna try to repeat it again right now. But it was one of those things he got from school. And it was like, ugh, you know what I mean? And it's kind of one of those things where we gotta kind of like, I mean, I honestly feel like we could even revisit the way that they teach African American studies in school and all different ethnic studies in school. I think that those things need to be addressed from, you know, from the communities in which that they tell the story. She tell their own story kind of more so than the way it's being done. So I think this is a good chance to use disability to get in on some of that, but make that a movement that's more unified as far as saying, well, disabled stories need to be told. They do. But I think we could have that narrative fit in. We need to tell, like you said, all you know, those type of ethnic studies type of stories better anyway. So, you know.
I want to go back to his question about height and your disability and your learning disabilities and stuff. I had mine for a long time.
Right.
And my wife told me to squeaky wheel gets the grease. Right. And don't speak up, you'll get absolutely nothing. Oh, yeah. So I did. She made me come back to school after 30 plus years, and I never thought I was smart enough to do this because I have my learning disability. I have no memory, and that's from the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They were shooting studs at it, so I have all the stuff that was in those. I have no memory. Right. And I came to the disability student, and they gave me whatever I needed. You have to work hard for it, but if you don't speak up, you'll get absolutely nothing. Oh, yeah. And to look at me, I'm just normal. Yeah. You know, you don't see my disability at all.
Yeah, in that case.
But it's there. And when people find out that I was diagnosed with PTSD, which I absolutely hate that term with passion. Right. Because as soon as somebody finds out who I am and what I've done and what I've seen, your perceptions change. Right. And I am no longer this guy who's standing here. Now I'm a baby killer. I've done this. I've killed mothers. And I've done all these things. All from those 4 stupid little words, right. Letters, and it puts me in a category over here. Now I'm separated from everybody else. Right. And that gentleman that was over here needs to speak up and go after what he needs. Right. Because I'm in his boat. We're all in the same boat together with the silent rage. Right. Yeah. Because we can't speak, we can't say anything. Because the general population looks at us totally different when they found out.
Yeah, and not just like you said, if you don't speak up, nothing happens. Even more importantly, if you don't speak up, they taken, right? It's not just that nothing happening. We're gonna make sure that we're gonna take whatever we can from you because you're not speaking up, type of thing. So believe me, I get it totally, and that's why, that's why it's important we talk about these things. It ain't just about people being born different and special things, whatnot. It's about people inheriting, if you will, certain PTSD or different things that you can see or not, but all these conversations add to that, right? They add to his ability to talk about it, to DSPS being able to talk about it, and add to even in your situation being able to talk about it, and that's important for everybody, right? And so when you have a kid maybe who acts wild at school and stuff, right? Your response isn't they're bad kids, right? We can talk about what's going on and figure things out that are good. And so. It's a thing that I think is important for people with disabilities. It's important just in general for society in general, right? We all win if we get this right, but it's a long road though. Yeah.
I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
You've been amazing, and I hope everyone here has taken something away from this. I've definitely learned a lot today just about vocabulary. Right. And words mean a lot. So I will be looking into that more just on my own to make sure that I'm using proper terms that are honoring and respectful to all humans. This does conclude our event and our time here. You're welcome to stay if you're available and you have a question or two for him. There's a sandwich. Please take a sandwich to go. There are plenty here. And thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. It's beautiful.
We're here trying to put something in the thing, in effect. I was telling my